The Reaper's Trust, Chapter 5, Combustion of Ambition. Fresh fear swelled in Violet's heart. "How do you know about that?" she breathed. "I know very much about you, little thing. It was you who killed your mother, was it not? Senkards ran its vines over the mage's body, assaulting her with chills." Violet lowered her head. "I didn't mean to." "Everyone told you it wasn't your fault. But we're too smart for that. She died when you were born. Who else but you to take the blame?" "Please, stop." "Your very birth was a murder," Senkards boomed. "Your destiny is to kill." Senkards' words were bold and dramatic, but it said them with such confidence that Violet couldn't help but consider them. She flinched, trying to find a rational argument to an irrational claim. Senkards continued. "Your magic doesn't lie." "Are you behind that?" Violet snapped. "Did you make it black?" "I didn't do a thing. Dark magic runs in your family." "None of my relatives had magic like that, and I didn't until tonight. Something interfered." The detached voice laughed, and the vines quivered. If only it were that simple. Corruption had lain dormant until you awakened it. You will understand in due time. Interest crept up on Violet, and she began to long for that understanding. Terrifying was the black energy, but also mysterious and enticing. She shut her eyes, thinking hard. "I admire that hunger for knowledge," Senkards cooed. "Such beautiful ambition and such raw power you have. Truly a shame that the weak take advantage of a skill like yours." A ray of relief shined over Violet. She cracked a crooked grin and laughed in short, breathy giggles. "Finally! Someone finally gets it!" "I also get why you've grown to despise your mentor," Senkard said. "But you don't know the first thing about his treachery." "What?" Pride and relief were shoved aside. Violet's eyes widened and her brow furrowed. "The Celestial King. His title beckons respect, but his crown is forged of lies and destruction." Vines tightened around Violet. "You are not the only murderer in hiding." A sprout pushed its way out of the ground. Its black petals rolled up in a tight, tiny bud. The mage stared deeply at it. She understood. Although Violet was skeptical of the flower's words, she already found herself beginning to believe them. It spoke of the king's past, telling of destruction and dictatorship. It planted the details like seeds, which grew into a dense forest of anger within Violet. The next night, when she arrived at the floating island, she wasted no time in confronting Charles. He was quiet upon seeing her, made hesitant by their previous argument. The moon hid behind the clouds, cowering in fear of what was about to happen. Violet approached the king in the dark hallway like a shadow herself. He was a far stronger and wiser mage, but she knew of the emotional power she had over him. Confident, she strode up to him and stared into his eyes. "Charles, tell me something," she began, her voice low and eerie like the distant rumbling thunder. "Tell me about your destructive past." The king stepped back, his eyes round. "Where did you hear that?" he gasped. "I want to hear it from you." Charles sighed deeply and turned his gaze to the window. His eyes searched the sky as if for guidance, but the thick, dark clouds had none for him. "I am peaceful and reflective now," he muttered. "But it's true that my past was not so fortunate." "You've destroyed entire worlds," Violet snarled. "Thousands of them." The king turned away. The heavens growled. Wrath littered Violet's voice. "Your hypocrisy goes way beyond us," she spat. "You tell me to resist hatred when you solved all your problems with it, when you massacred galaxies with it." "You're referring to a time long gone. You don't deserve the throne." The words echoed through the corridor, soaking into the walls, floors. Charles barely breathed, not meeting his apprentice's furious eyes. She strained to hold back her magic from responding to her anger. There was no telling how the king would react to it now, but Violet couldn't stop herself from spilling her feelings. "Deceit, sophistry," she hissed. "You've twisted your image into a perfect shield to hide behind, stealing people from their families for your sick little social experiment, you fucking coward." Flinching, the king said nothing in his defense. Violet continued to berate him, screaming about his time as a destructive ruler, no matter how long ago it was. She cared not that millennia had passed. His malevolence may have waned, but his deception did not. His lies and actions in the present made Violet want to tear him apart. He was no different than the selfish king he used to be. Violet huffed and resisted attacking him. Despite how much he deserved it, his time would come. She turned and walked away down the corridor, but his voice stopped her. "Don't do anything rash." The dark mage looked out the window at the sleeping cottages far below. They rested beneath the floating island, housing blissful fools. "Don't worry. I won't tell them," Violet said. Her eyes narrowed. "I'll let them be ignorant." "That isn't what I meant." "I don't care what you meant." Violet kept walking. "You misunderstand the evil you're tampering with," whispered the king. "Hate, wrath. They'll bring you nothing but more pain." "Compliancy hasn't helped me either," Violet scoffed. "I'll lead my life the way I choose." Violet was quick to leave, escaping the king's view before teleporting back to her cottage. In her head formed complex schemes, twisting and branching without end. She paced in her small bedroom, thinking harder than she ever had. The universe was built on Charles' foundation of lies, doomed only to grow into a higher tower of chicanery. He betrayed the respect he was given in secrecy, and thus his sins went unnoticed by his blinded subjects. To remain placid in her position would be a sin itself, and Violet was unwilling to stoop to his level. She looked at her hand, contemplating her abilities. With renewed vigor, she tore through grimoires in her cottage in search of any information regarding dark magic. She had read them all before, but saw anything she missed. Surely black energy had been witnessed and recorded somewhere. Violet searched hastily to no avail. She closed the final book and tossed it on her bed with a frustrated huff. It almost seemed as if the black magic didn't exist at all. But there it was, bubbling from Violet's eyes as she levitated the books back into their shelves. She studied the way it coursed through her and found that it was the same in practice, but not in nature. Spells were cast as normal, but there was something sadistic and vile about the magic itself. It was tempting, like it begged to be unleashed. Violet knew what she had to do, but wasn't sure how to. There were too many factors to think about at once, so she took one step at a time and vanished through a storm of darkness. Sincards moved its vines gently upon the mage's arrival. Thunder growled overhead and light rain fell. The thin and foggy woods offered some protection from the drizzle, but peaceful droplets still trickled down the trees, leaves, and Violet's body. She looked down at the lone flower bud. It stood silent and motionless by the pond's edge. The night was nearly over, but darkness still reigned supreme. Violet knelt down by the flower and let the long, black vines caress her. "Sincards," began the Frostillion. "It's true. He told me himself." "Then you've made up your mind?" replied the plant. "I have." Laughter rose from Sincards. "Then we'll dethrone him together." Violet released a shaky sigh. She had thought it over all night, but still fought hesitation and fear. Charles was unimaginably powerful, but she had an advantage that no one else did. Someone had to put a stop to his cruel games, and it had to be her. She closed her eyes briefly and hardened her resolve. Listening to the rainfall and taking a deep breath, she found confidence. "I have to work from the inside, chip away at the foundation," she said with a glance to the charcoal sky. "Going straight for the king isn't an option. His pawns need to go down first." My. It sounds like you already have a plan," the flower praised. Not exactly. I have to get off this world before anything, but I'm not sure I can break the barrier surrounding it. Violet rubbed her chin in thought. Only messengers could pass through the barrier, but it was doubtful that Comet would disregard rules and warp Violet through. She sighed. I could cast a spell to disable it, but I don't think I have enough raw power to succeed. Then absorb more, Singard said. Violet raised an eyebrow. It doesn't work that way. Perhaps not, but by harnessing the power of black magic. The mage's other eyebrow raised, fixing onto a shocked expression. Her words were soft as the rain. You're saying it can drain magic? It drains life energy. Souls. Souls? No, I can't just go around slaughtering people. Didn't your father kill without a qualm? My father was an assassin who served the goddess of our world. Violet shook her head. He killed threats. Black vines slithered around Violet, one of them creeping under her sweater. You would be doing the same, Singard's code. Murder so that you may overthrow the king and free the universe from his deceitful reign. Violet's eyes drifted to the wet ground. Think, Violet. They've all lied to you. They're threats, and so is Charm.